Alright, we're live.
Horrible formatting and StreamYard. There we go.
So you on YouTube. There we go. Okay, we are live. So yeah, who's up first now?
It's gonna be Kevin.
Kevin, fantastic. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, on this beautiful Friday. Welcome to, I think this is the 5th edition of Datasette Public Office Hours. If you missed the last one, we have 6 videos on YouTube that we sliced out for the demos that we did last time. We'll be doing the same for this one as well. And yeah, our first demo is from Kevin Madura. So Kevin, let's bring you up onto the stage. There we go. And yeah, are you? Do you have a screen ready to share?
I do. Yeah, let's put it up here. Now you should be able to see my screen at this point.
There we go.
Perfect. And I tried to zoom in a bit, but let me know if I need to do more. So first of all, yeah, thanks, Simon, for having me, and really for all the work that's gone into LLM. It's been pretty interesting. And the biggest thing for me, to kind of give you some history, was back in 2023, some discussion on basically what was structured outputs before structured outputs. And Jason Liu had developed this Python library, and so there was a little bit of back and forth with which I think eventually never really made it into LLM formally, but of course made it into the APIs of OpenAI and others. But didn't see a native way to call this, at least from the LLM versions that I was looking at. So just created something quick that allowed me to define different schemas in YAML format. It's easy enough to define it in Python, but it gets a little bit tricky. There's maybe some security issues about importing it. And so figured YAML was a nice kind of clean way to define a structure and then have that be able to be used by LLM. So just as an example, in this case, we've developed an LLM plugin, which is just LLM structure. I think, as we'll see in a minute, the better way to do this is to integrate it natively with LLM Gemini or just LLM proper. But for now, it lives as a plugin where you can basically just feed in the information that you want. So in this case, we're looking at the sentence, Chase, 53, and 49-year-old Mia went to the market. And we're looking to define the schema or use the schema called people.yaml. And I'll just show what that looks like really quick, which is very simple. It's really just an array of these person objects, and person is defined as this object with a name and an age as an integer. So if I run that through, I can pipe that into JQ as the output. And what this is really just doing under the hood is just adding that into the call itself. To use the structured outputs component of the API. So in that case, I did person.yaml, which is just the person object. And then if you see I do people.yaml, it actually will use the array object to add multiple persons, multiple people in this case, to the final output. So it's simple enough on the surface, but I find it useful even in day-to-day in using it for even parsing things like websites. So I know, Simon, you're always a big fan of using the Pelican eval, as I call it. So I pulled up this Pelican website where we have 8 different types, right? You go through the names, the length, wingspan, what have you, in a reasonable enough format to view. But can we use this and put it into more of a structured format, right? So if I do that. Pelicans, same idea, right? We have an array of Pelican objects. In this case, we're looking for name, the scientific name, which it's not really defined in the page. It's kind of just inferred by the way it's in italics here. And so if we put this in, you can probably imagine what the output looks like, but it's nice when you can combine it with tools like strip tags and then pipe it directly in. So this is a pipeline of curl strip tags, strip everything out to just the text, feed it into LLM, the plugin of structure with that defined schema, pipe that into JQ, and you get at this really nice clean output of the different pelicans that have been listed on that page.
I love that you went with the Pelican demo. This is really cool. I dug up the code and there's nothing to it, right? It's 160 lines of Python for the whole
There's
thing.
nothing to it. I mean, it's really
straightforward.
It's simple, but super, super powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting chat. So I've been thinking about this because I want to add tool usage to LLM. And step one to tool usage is the structured exports. The challenge is the abstractions. I noticed that you've effectively hard coded it to say, okay, if it's O1 or GPT-4o, then directly call the OpenAI client library, right? I think that's how you're doing
Correct.
this.
Now,
Which
it's a little janky. It works well enough for OpenAI. I do have a PR, mind you, for LLM Gemini, which does the same thing, but natively for the Gemini API.
Right.
So same exact concept, but it's using Google's SDK or API for this, of course.
Because I feel like this is a job for LLM Core. Like LLM Core needs to offer an abstraction over these things, which is, I mean, there's a reason I haven't built it yet. I've been collecting notes and dragging my heels on it because it's quite complicated. But I think we're at a point like a year ago that there just wasn't enough stability in the other APIs that we could design an abstraction. I think we're at a point now where we can design an abstraction that will work. The thing that tripped it over for me is Ollama, it turns out, has function calling, has this stuff built into the Ollama client. And that just works against dozens of models in the Ollama ecosystem. So I was running, when Mistral Small came out yesterday, I was using Ollama to test it for structured data extraction, and it worked.
Yeah.
And so the Ollama team have already done quite a lot of research into what a sort of slimline abstraction over this works. I really like your custom YAML format. I've been playing with Pydantic, where you can just provide a class, which is quite a nice way of defining these things as well. I feel like supporting multiple different formats for this makes sense. You know, the Pydantic Python classes and YAML schemas and old-fashioned and old JSON schema stuff as well. Yep. But as a proof of concept for what the feature looks like, this is fantastic. I love that being able to just curl something and pipe it straight in is just so obviously valuable as well. Yeah, this is really cool. Thank you very much for putting the demo together.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, and so if people want to see that, I've dropped the it's github.com/KMAD. You'll find LLM instructions there. I've dropped a link into the Discord chat as well, and I'll put them in the show notes later. Awesome. Thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, next up we have Vivek, who I've just added to the screen. Do you have a screen to share?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. It's all up
Great.
there.
Awesome. Great. Hi, I'm Vivek. I was a research engineer at Comma.ai working on self-driving cars. Now I'm working on my own company, trying to make data modeling actually work in production settings. But anyway, in any case, so I've been using LLM, the CLI tool, for a while now, and I absolutely love it. And one of my sort of patterns of use is, any question I have, I ask like 4 LLMs, and then I see what all of them say. And I saw the Karpathy tweet, and I saw last time in the last call there was LLM Consortium, which would like send it around and try to get consensus. But I think I definitely see value in reading all of them independently and not like summarizing over them. And I built like a plugin for LLM called LLM Council. And I've been using it, and I saw this call, so I thought I'll package it up and I'll publish it. And I did last night. So you can just install it right now. So the way it works is, you just do LLM Council, and then you ask a question. I also saw LLM CMD uses Prompt Toolkit, which is fantastic. So it just brings up, you can see OpenAI on the left, and you can see Anthropic on the right. You can like tab with them, and you can like go down, and you can.
Is this
you can basically
textual or rich for the interface there?
So this is just using Prompt Toolkit app.
Oh,
so
it's
they
using
have
Prompt Toolkit directly. Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So this is just directly
Ah.
using Prompt Toolkit. So it just uses Prompt Toolkit app. It just has 2 buffers which you can fill. So some to-dos for me were to actually support streaming, and then I want to ask further, so I can ask a particular thing and branch out from there. These are things that I wanted to do. But yeah, basically any question you have. So you can also like specify the provider. So right now I have hard-coded the models for the providers, but you can potentially change that as well. But if you want to add another provider, you just so it's built on LLM Claude 3, LLM Gemini, all of the plugins. It just uses all of those plugins. So you just have to install all of them, and then you add a new provider, and then it shows up. And then I can go through them, and I can see what each one has to say. And this is I was using this sort of semi-seriously for a while. I thought I'd just put it together so that you can just try it out.
Is it logging everything to the database as well? Like, do they all end up in SQLite?
Yeah, I think it's doing. It has the same pattern as LLM CMD. It just uses those utilities to directly,
the column thing.
It on Spring.
Just 3 different colors and 3 different columns is so much more instantly useful than I expected.
This makes. I agree. I mean, I've been tinkering around with the actual UI for a couple of days, and I found this to be super intuitive because right now my brain is also trained to see the color. I mean, I just see which one, and I generally trust Anthropic for qualitative stuff, so I immediately see that, and then I go over. But yeah, I found this super useful.
So the next feature is going to be the ability to specify individual models, right? Because straight away I'm like, okay, O3 Mini just came out. I want O1 Mini and O3 Mini next to each other.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, specify individual models. Also, question more. So if you like one thread, you should be able to go down and ask everybody else about that, and then branch out. So these are a couple of things that I had in mind.
Gotcha. This is brilliant. This is you effectively. It's like LM Arena, but just for you as a personal thing. Something that I've been thinking about with respect to that, I kind of want to pick the best one. I want to do my own ELO scoring just for my own preferences and go. And right one, left one. We had a demo of something similar to that last week. We had a feedback plugin, but being able to do that with these comparative prompts.
I think that would actually be great. Yeah, you can tab, and then you can just have some key binding for select, this is the best, and then over time you can build stats on your own questions. That would be cool.
Because that's honestly O3 Mini just came out, and I'm feeling so. The fact that I don't have my own automated eval suite is just holding me back now. I'm like, am I really going to manually ask them all for a new picture of the Pelican or whatever? I haven't done the Pelican yet with O3 Mini. I've been too busy getting the code out.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah, you can definitely do that. That's a cool idea. I'll probably add that so that you can and then you can pull up your stats and you can see which one you rated more. You can also probably do it blindly. That would be interesting.
Oh, that would be so much better. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, the LM Arena trick. That would be.
Yeah. I think what would be cool
is
if it doesn't
of that already.
Yeah, if it doesn't show you the name, but then there can be a key binding to show you the name. So that would be pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, and so if people want to, is this up on GitHub now?
Yep, it's up on GitHub.
What's your GitHub username?
Let me just. It's Nwandawek. I'm just gonna put it in the chat here.
Brilliant.
So that's the. You can just install that. It's also published on PyP, so you can just LLM install it and it'll work.
Awesome. Thank you very much. This was really cool.
Great. I just had one more thing to show.
Go for it.
One of the reasons why I wanted to do this was also because I was working on a sort of loose benchmark called Tokyo Bench. So this is basically the King of Tokyo game. It's a very simple version of that game. It's a very nice card game. I love it for the simplicity in rules, but also the rich sort of game dynamics that evolve out of the multiplayer game. So if you don't know about it, it's just a multiplayer card game. where you have like two decisions to make, whether to choose some dice or reroll them, or like leave Tokyo. You can read up about it. It's pretty cool. And because the action space is so limited, I just built like a small like a bench where you can actually write an agent and you can just play it. And you can specify the agents, and then you can make LLMs play. You can have your own custom heuristics, and then you can see how they fare against each other. And so this is also on GitHub. But basically, to specify an agent, you just have to give two functions, like so the keep dice function and the yield Tokyo function. And then you can specify what prompt you want for the LLM to get access to this and play. I just wanted to show a couple of games where it's on my README.
I have a quick question about that. Could you have two models play the game against each other?
Yeah. So I have these games.
So O3 Mini against Claude Sonnet or something?
Yep. So I have these. In this game, so you see Anthropic. And Anthropic recognizes O3 Mini is...
Are you showing this on the screen at the moment? It's possible it's on the screen that's not shared.
Let me just try to reshare. I was just showing... can you see this?
Yes, there it is. Gotcha.
Yeah, great. Yeah, okay. So basically right now I have these agents. So you have a random, and then you have a rule-based angry agent. You can also play with it. And then I have 4.0, Mini, and Anthropic. I mean, as I was saying, you just have to give two functions for every agent, and then it just works. So I just want to show some traces. So what I find super fun is seeing the reasoning traces for these things.
Because they're all doing the think out loud thing. It's not even reasoning.
Yeah. So I basically I'm like thinking out loud first and then giving the final answer. So you can see, so in this, like Claude 3.5 Sonnet is playing against O1 Mini, and you can see that it recognizes O1 Mini is close to winning, so it has to change its strategy to actually. It wants to change the strategy because the other one is winning.
I want to see I want O3 Mini versus DeepSeek R1.
Right.
Put them up against each other, see what happens.
No, for sure. And like, I mean, because the action space is so limited, it also affords like the R1 training. You can actually train the RL R1, like you can use the same recipe to actually train it on this game. And that is something that would be really cool.
Completely seriously, why are there any benchmarks out there that have the reasoning models just battling against each other in logic games and stuff?
Not that I could find.
There should be, right? Hell, I mean, I wonder if they can play chess. There was that weird thing where the Chat GPT, the GPT 3.5 instruct model was the only one that was good at chess. Everything else was terrible at chess.
Yeah. But even that had like a pretty poor ELO, if I remember correctly. But the thing is, like, I think the chess dynamics are like so well understood, and it's there's a lot of theory behind it. Like the thing I like is about simple games with simple rules that have like rich dynamics.
The reasoning is much more obvious. Like with chess, and how do you know it's not just replaying like one of the billion games it's training games?
For sure. So I mean, I have had so much fun going through the reasoning traces for all of these things. So you can just run it on your own. You can just give the players that you want, and you can do a multiplayer game. And you can just try running traces. So if you can also get a report. Basically, I just output the game logs into an HTML, so you can like go through it later. My biggest bottleneck right now has just been speed. I mean, it's just so slow to get these models to like play games. I haven't been able to, like, ideally I want to run like 100 games and then show you like proper statistics on like how they perform.
Have you tried any of the Grok hosted level, the Grok hosted models yet?
Not yet. I got access to Cerebrus yesterday.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
and they have R1, DeepSeek R1. So that is something that I want to do this weekend, which is add it and then run it on like 100 games and then see how it works.
When did they add DeepSeek R1? That must be... They did
I think yesterday.
2 days ago. Nice.
Right,
I've been playing... Grok has the Llama 70B R1 that I've been trying out. But that's huge. Because, the reasoning models, when you put them in one of these, like, these very high-speed inference engines, they feel so different.
Yeah, I know. It's like a whole other experience. So I'm putting the GitHub for this as well. You can try it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. This was really, really, really cool. Okay. Next up, I'm going to invite to the stage Amjith. Did I pronounce that okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Please show us your demo.
Yeah. So my name is Amjad. I'm going to show you a demo of a existing tool called LightCLI, which is used for talking to SQLite databases. It does auto-completion. Let me just show you really quickly.
I'm such a huge fan of LightCLI. It's
thank you.
It's a beautiful piece of terminal software.
Thank you.
Is it related to the PGCLI one? Does it share a code base?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm the author. So I started with PGCLI and then built MyCLI and then LightCLI, and
Nice.
yeah, they're all the same, or not same code base, but they're very similar. It started with PGCLI.
Cool.
So for playing around, I chose the Chrome history database because it's a fairly rich one. I'm just looking at my Chrome history. And the idea here is that it will do things like the tables and the columns in that table and so on, which is nice, which is auto completion, and that involves no AI or LLM or anything like that. But the idea behind integrating with LLM is now I can ask English questions. So this is inspired by Simon, your plugin for SQLite utils, where you are able to ask a question using LLM and then get the answer back. And for me, I didn't want to get the answer back. I wanted a SQL query that would actually answer that question. And so first of all, the idea is to you start a special command called /LLM or \LLM, and this actually brings in LLM for you. So that on the first attempt, it will ask, would you like me to install it? And then you say yes. Again, this is also taken code from yours where you install LLM install a plugin. I'm taking the code to basically install LLM itself. And it restarts LightCLI with the same arguments. And so now LLM is loaded. And if you run it again, it will give you a quick help that says, this is how you ask the question. And this is entirely embedding LLM tool itself inside of LightCLI. So all the power that you get in the command line, you get it inside of LightCLI itself. So I could do something like LLM models to take, and that tells me these are the various models that became that came with it, and then the default one is O1.
Is that actually running the CLI tool? Like if you do LLM models space -- options, does that work as well?
Yes. What does options do? I don't know.
That shows it shows you the available options for the models.
Yeah.
Like just introspective documentation. That's very cool. Okay.
So the one slight thing to tell you is it also does auto completion on the available subcommands. So I can do keys, and then I can do set, and I can do OpenAI, and this will ask me to set the key, and and then now I have set the key. Now I can ask questions. What is the latest downloaded file, for instance? And this sends this question to LLM. But in addition to that, it is actually annotating the prompt with the existing database tables and a sample row from each of the table. And it prints it out, but it gives you a lot of information. And since this is embedding entire LLM tool, I can ask a follow-up question that says, just give me the file name and the size. And this is continuing the previous conversation, which is, that we asked, and then now we're asking a follow-up question. And so now this should redefine the query to say, this is the target path and the total bytes and so on. And I can continue this conversation again, and I can say, give me the size in gigabytes or something. But you get the idea.
This is such a great interface. Like like you said, my SQLite utils ask thing is a similar kind of idea, but this is just so much more flexible. Like I could see myself using this on a daily basis, definitely.
Excellent. Yeah. And then one other quick thing that I wanted to show is you'll notice that this is just extracting the SQL query and it doesn't provide the context around it. If you want to see the context as well, you could just add a plus. This is, again, taken inspiration from Postgres's idea of like if you do \d, it'll give you just the table information. And then if you do \d plus, that's like a verbose table definition kind of a thing. So this is kind of a verbose thing where now if I did this, this will print out like the additional context that it had. So this will say things like to retrieve the file name, I did this, these are the tables that I used, and this is the SQL query in the code fence. And I'm simply extracting that SQL query and then filling it in for the user to then edit. And
what's that bit where it says tables use downloads, this table contains information? Is that LLM generated, that description of the table?
Yes, it is LLM generated description of the table. Yes. So I can show you the template that I'm actually using. So since LLM comes with the idea of templates, I decided to use the template to sort of add the thing. So this is the same thing. And so you may remember I think it's templates.
Templates list should do. Yep.
Oh, list. There we go. So list tells me that I've added a template called that, and then I can edit that template inline over here. And it allows me to edit. And the $DB schema is the one that I insert, where I'm providing the database schema, and then I think a sample data and questions are the other thing. So the sample data is over there, and question is the other item. So these are things that I'm inserting, but then you can add or remove certain things if you want. And the final thing that I wanted to say is it does allow you to install additional plugins on the fly. So I have Olama so that I can run local models, and I can then choose what options. I can just choose over here, set the default, and then it tells you what are the available models that I have currently now. And then I can say Qwen Coder latest, and then I can ask the same questions again. So what is the latest downloaded file? And it should produce the answers from a local LLM itself. So you don't have to worry about like your SQL data being shipped to an external party and being reviewed and things like that. So if you have data sensitive data, then you can just do this all locally.
And Qwen 2.5 Coder, I seem to remember, is pretty good at SQL, right?
Yeah, it is.
What it comes up with.
Yeah. My laptop's not as fast. It's a M1, so it's a very old generation, so it's not as fast, but it produces reasonably good results, and I'm quite happy with it.
How much RAM do you have?
I don't remember. I think it's 32 gig. I want to say.
Okay. I wonder if like Qwen 2.5 Coder is good. Mistral Small 3 that just came out does appear to punch way above its weight. So I wonder if that one's going to be. But it's funny, like the local models. About 6 months ago, I was losing interest in them because they just weren't very good. And then in the past 3 months, they've all got amazing. Like I can run genuinely GPT-4 class models. And yeah, the Mistral Small from yesterday, it's a really good model as far as I can tell.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, that is my demo, and yeah, it's in the latest version of Light CLI. You just have to install Light CLI and then run -LLM for the first time, and it should bring in the necessary dependencies and so on.
Awesome. This was fantastic. Thank you very much for the demo. And yeah, I'll put this in the show notes. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to using this. I think this is going to become a bit of a daily driver for me for all sorts of things.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Alex, are you ready to go?
Yes. What's up?
Great. Hey, yeah. Do we have a screen sharing thing as well?
Yes, trying to share right now. Let's see if that works. Hey, there we go. Cool.
Fantastic.
Cool. So 2 things I want to talk about. First thing, we're working on redesigning some parts of Datasette, mostly the UI around Datasette. So we're trying to, kind of streamline a few things like menu items and buttons and kind of standardize some colors and fonts, small things like that. But I think the biggest thing that we want to try to attempt to work with a bit is the table interface for Datasette. So if you use Datasette quite a lot, the interface on the left-hand side over here is probably what you know about. So typical SQL table in a SQLite database, table name, table of results. There's faceting and all that. That's all great. A few things that we are thinking of changing, and I think this is going to be a fairly larger redesign thing. It will require some changes to Datasette itself. So I think eventually we'll make a public GitHub issue about this redesign and kind of get some feedback. But a few things that at least are on my mind to change. This is a design that I have here on the right-hand side, mostly around a toolbar up here. Let me kind of make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So we're thinking of adding a new toolbar at the very top for facets, so that way you could switch between certain pages that are used quite often on the table view page. So for example, a tab for editing the SQL directly versus it being a separate page, a tab for faceting where we could have a slightly better, more compact UI for facets, where you can add multiple filters and it'll show you exactly what's an and or an or. As well as still being able to copy data as JSON or getting a link to the current view as a CSV or JSON or other data formats, as well as having better options for other plugins to add new screens. So for example, a new screen for enrichments. So you can choose, for enrichments that we talked about in previous public office hours of things like running AI prompts on every single row in a database or in a table or query, or plot. So using Datasette plot, another plugin that we talked about before, that to plot, to make a data visualization of your current view. So that's what we're trying to attempt here with this first initial idea for a redesign. Also on the right-hand side, we're thinking of moving maybe faceting on the right-hand side, so that we have filters on the left on the toolbar, and then suggested facets on the right. So for example, if you have a column with multiple values and you wanted the most common, small things like that. So for first thing, so we will make a public GitHub issue about this redesign. So if you have cool ideas of other cool database or table designs that you have in other tools. So for example, one tool that I reference a lot is Drizzle Studio. Drizzle Studio has a nice front end to explore database tables. So I'm taking some inspiration from there. So if you have any ideas there, we'll be able to share it in a public issue that we will start early next week. So wanted to flag that.
I wanted to call out quickly, the other thing that we're thinking about at the moment is the design of the Datasette homepage itself. Because the homepage right now lists all of the databases that you have, and most people only have one database. So you've got a homepage which is just a link to a single database, which isn't particularly interesting. And so some of the things we're thinking about there are, I'm beginning to think that databases are much less important than tables, right? If you have a data set instance with 2 databases, each of them have 10 tables in, really we should be showing a paginated list of those 20 tables on that homepage with the ability to search through them and filter through them and so forth. There are some interesting performance problems around that, because we have to think about things like authentication. If we're doing permission checks against 1,000 tables, how do we make that performant for loading the homepage? We've got a good idea about how we're going to do that. That's a piece of work that I need to spend some time on. But yeah, there's so if you do have ideas around the sort of core Datasette UI, now is absolutely the time to be talking to myself and Alex about them.
For sure, especially if you're a plugin author who wants to have a dedicated UI space somewhere on if it's either a pre-existing table page or SQL page or whatever, or if you want to have a better way to access your plugins page in a better interface, definitely keep that issue in mind. So we'll be sharing that early next week. Cool. And the second thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is this other project that I have going on. So this is a project called SQLite TG that I've been working on the side for quite a long time. Unfortunately, I should be getting a release out soon finally. But what SQLite TG is, if you ever worked with geographic data in SQLite, you probably have used Spatial Light before. Spatial Light is great. It's very powerful, but it's also very overwhelming and a little bit unsafe in certain parts. So what SQLite TG is, it is a SQLite extension for GIS operations. It's built off of a C library called TG. I'll drop a link to this repo later. But TG is a very small C library for very basic GIS operations. operations. So for example, GeoJSON to well-known binary, well-known text to well-known binary, conversions like that, as well as like constructing points or polygons or even operations. So like, oh, does this polygon intersect this polygon? Is this point inside of this polygon? Things like that. So it is a very small C library that I package into the SQLite extension where you can run SQL queries that do common GIS tasks. So for example, again, well-known text into GeoJSON, other conversions like that. And what I'm working on is a few other additions to SQLite TG, namely, one fun little project that I've had running on the side is, and actually I'm going to run a quick dataset instance here. So what I have here is I'm going to start a dataset instance with this database that I have, and this database contains census tracts of all census tracts in California. So it's in a database called temp.db. And
I want to interrupt for just 1 second and point out Datasette SQLite TG. That plugin has the compiled C extension in it, right?
Yes. Yeah. So you don't have to precompile or anything. It just, yeah.
Yeah. Alex has a whole bunch of plugins like that where they actually have a compiled C extension to SQLite available for macOS and Linux and Windows and all of the different architectures. It's such a convenient way of trying this stuff out.
Yeah, it's much better than if you ever tried to install Spatialite yourself. It is quite a nightmare, and I don't even know if it works on Windows or a few other like operating systems. So it's always not very fun. Whereas SQLite TG, it's precompiled. This is a pip. This is a pip library. So Datasette SQLite TG. Here I'm running it with UV. So I'm just creating a virtual environment on the fly because UV is amazing. So this will download it and run Datasette with these two extensions built in. First one being SQLite TG, and the second one being a Leaflet GeoJSON dataset plugin. So I'll run that and then we'll play with it a little bit. But essentially what we have here is a SQLite database. Every single tract in California, there's around like 9,000 of them. There is a geometry column, which is well-known binary. So it's just a big blob of like the polygons for each census tract, as well as a population column. So this is the number of people who live in this tract as of like 2023 or whatever. So one fun project that I like to do with this is, I guess, if you want a visual representation of it using this Datasette Leaflet plugin, if you convert it to GeoJSON and name that column geometry, then you can get an inline view of that tract as GeoJSON and in a leaflet map, which is very fun. But one fun project that I use SQLite TG for this is imagine California, like big old state. Where is the line where when you draw a horizontal line, half of the population lives above it and the other half lives below it, right? NorCal, SoCal, where does that line exist? We can calculate that using just this table in SQLite TG. And the SQL itself is a little bit messy. I'll kind of go over in a second, but the output of it, if you're curious, is this right here. Let me zoom in so you can see. So state of California, around this big, and the line is actually way down in Southern California. So like half the population, around 19 million people, live above this line, and the other half live below it. The line itself is like almost on like the top of Los Angeles County, like around like San Fernando.
It's that thing where LA County has 10 million people. So anything that you do with counties is skewed. LA County gets involved.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's up?
I want to see the SQL query.
Yeah. So the bulk of it is just a window function that the general algorithm here is that you sort each tract by like latitude, right? So like the first you order it by latitude of the of the bounding box of the tract, and you take a running sum of the population based off of that, and then you cut it off once it hits 50%. So you pre-calculate from 31 million people, 19.5 million. So you take a rolling sum average or a rolling sum of populations off of that ordered tract. And then once you reach it, then there's your line. So that's basically what happens here with window functions. It's a little bit complicated, but here we're selecting all the tracks. We are calculating a bounding box. We are ordering it by the minimum Y value of that bounding box. And we're taking a running sum of that. And then in the second step, this is where we specifically say hey, we want to find the minimum, the tract where it goes over 50% in ratio. So it's a little bit awkward, but here we could actually manually using TG we can manually construct a GeoJSON line object to create the line string that we had down before. So here we're creating 2 points. So the first point is on the complete left side, halfway between complete left side. The second point is on the right side. We construct a line, we convert that to GeoJSON. That finally returns an SQL query with 1 row, with 1 column geometry that has this right here. So it's a little bit complicated, a little bit hard, but at least just to show that, like, if you just have a very simple geometric data set, you could use SQLite TG, which is coming soon. I have a plugin for it. You can pip install if you want, but the documentation's not great. And you can do like kind of somewhat complex GIS operations like this. So that's
if you scroll to the very bottom, how long did that query take to run?
Oh, this is like 40 milliseconds.
40 milliseconds.
Quick. Yeah.
And that's how many tracks are there in the database? It was
9,000, which is a lot less than I thought, but yeah.
Okay.
So
that's not bad, is it?
If you want to make it faster, you can like pre-calculate bounding boxes and all that, and do that for like every state in the United States. I did have a previous project where I used observable notebooks to do this. So like for every single state, I found like this median line for all states, and then also a vertical line, which is also a little fun. But doing it in SQL is a lot nicer, in my opinion, and very low dependencies with SQLite TG. So yeah.
This was super cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to finish. I don't have much to demo today. I'm going to demonstrate basically a little feature that I just added to the LLM Anthropic plugin this morning, which I've been wanting for ages, and I thought it was really difficult, and then I realized it wasn't. So the Claude API, it's worth mentioning, there's a plugin called LLM Claude 3 at the moment. I'm about to replace that with LLM Anthropic instead, which is exactly the same thing, just renamed, because I'm pretty sure they're going to do a Claude 4. And when they do, I'd like to have a plugin that's ready for it. So if I do LLM install LLM Anthropic, LLM models. So there's, in a recent release of LLM, I added a -Q option. So you can say LLM models -Q Anthropic and see just the Anthropic models, which is quite handy. Let's use Haiku for this. So the new feature is Anthropic have this thing where you can set a prefix on you can set a prefill when you run a prompt. So you can say, here's a prompt. I want you to start your response with this particular string. And I realized that I thought I needed to add that whole thing to LLM as a sort of base abstraction. Then I realized that I can do it with options instead. So now if I say LLM-Q, let's do Haiku --options, there's this new option here called prefill, which is a prefill to use for the response. And there's a couple of other that I'll show you in a moment as well. So if I say LLM-M Haiku, there we go, -O, prefill that info about a pelican, what this should do. Oh, look at this. If that wasn't quite enough for it, it did start with a curly brace, but it used that for the title of the thing. I'm going to say data about a pelican and see if that gives me back JSON instead. And there we go, it did. So this is a very powerful hint that you can give models to help. In this case, I'm using it for JSON. In the past, I've used it for things like HTML. You can feed an HTML doc type. You can feed it the beginning of an SVG shape to try and get it to output SVG. It's a really powerful trick. Now, the way the API works is that the token you feed it just disappears. So if I was to run this against the Claude API directly, I'd get back invalid JSON. LLM doesn't do that. LLM actually outputs that token manually for you, unless you add another option called high prefill 1, and then it will not do that. So there are cases where you might want to give it a prefill option and not have that echoed back out to you. The best example of where you'd want to do that is actually for code blocks. So let's do this one. So here I'm saying, give me a short Python function describing a pelican. The prefill is backtick, backtick, backtick Python. And I'm giving it a stop sequence as well. This is the other new feature I just added to the plugin, where you can say and stop when you get to the closing set of backticks. I've told it to hide the prefill. So if I do that, I just get back Python code. So that gave me the Python code. It treated it as if the Python fence code block was there. The moment it generated that closing backtick, 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 it stopped, and it gives you Python code, which you could. Okay, I'm going to try something risky. Let's do. I don't know if that's going to work actually. Yeah, the problem is that at that point it lost the settings for the prefill and the stop sequence. So what I'll do instead is I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to pipe it into Python. Let's see what happens. There we go. Look at this. And I can do LLM-C to see the actual prompt response that came back, which if we're lucky, oh, sorry, it's LLM logs-C. There we go. It responded with describe pelican, bloody blah, and then called the describe pelican function. So if you want to write scripts that use language models to write horrifying bash one-liners and then execute them directly on your terminal, this is a tool that will let you do that. That's the LLM-Anthropic plugin. I released it. I think I released it. Yeah, I've released it to PyPI. I'll be blogging about that later on today as well. And oh, the other thing, I will quickly demonstrate that we do now have O3 Mini. There we go. And there is one additional feature on O3 Mini, which is new today, and -- options. The O3 models have this thing called reasoning effort, where you can tell them how much thinking time you want them to spend on the tasks that you've given them. So if I say LLM-M O3 Mini, let's do a haiku about how great pelicans are, but I'm going to tell it to do reasoning effort high. So now it's going to think really, really, really hard before it gives me that haiku. And I will compare the haiku that it produces. Wow, it's really thinking. Okay. Huh. Was not expecting it to take that long. Assuming it hasn't just got stuck. LM-MO3. No, I think it's just trying to create the world's most perfect haiku. There we go. That's its haiku. And if I change reasoning effort to low, this will probably be a little bit faster because hopefully it won't think as hard. There we go. There's a high effort and a low effort haiku. If you run LLM logs -N2, oh, and then I can add -U or -usage, and I can see how many tokens it used. That first haiku, it used 2,496 reasoning tokens, and the second one used 64 reasoning tokens. So we can increase and decrease the amount of reasoning effort that's going into these prompts. I haven't actually found a great example where this is useful yet. Like the haikus weren't really that different, but I'm looking out for example prompts right now that would help illustrate the difference between low, medium, and high levels of reasoning. But yeah, that's everything that we've got for you today. So again, thank you very much for coming along to our public office hours. We will be running these probably every 2 weeks, and we're going to, I think we should probably get a permanent sign-up sheet up for people to give demos, because it's always fun to see what people are building. And yeah, thank you very much for coming along. And we'll have show notes and separated videos up on my blog at some point soon as well. So thank you. Oh, and a big thanks to Alex Garcia for pulling all of this together. When you fill that form, it's Alex who's been responding to people and getting them lined up and sorting everything. So thank you very much, Alex.